Somewhere beneath the ruined earth, thousands of people are living out their lives without ever seeing the sky. They believe the world outside is poison. They believe the silo has always existed. They believe the past is a mistake, sealed away for their own protection. But someone built these silos. Someone chose who would live and who would be left to die in the open air. This is the story of that someone. This is Shift, the second book in Hugh Howey's Silo trilogy, and it is the origin story behind everything you thought you understood about wool. The year is 2049. Donald Keene is a freshman congressman from Georgia, young, idealistic, and completely unprepared for what is about to happen to his life. He has just been elected to Washington, and waiting for him is Senator Paul Thurman, an old friend of his family, a man who has known Donald since he was a boy. Thurman does not waste time with pleasantries. He hands Donald a folder. Inside is an architectural sketch Donald drew years earlier in college, a design for a self-sufficient underground structure, something he built as a class project and never thought about again. Thurman wants him to finish it. He wants Donald to design a bunker. The official story is simple enough to believe. The government is building a nuclear waste storage site called CAD-FAC, the Containment and Disposal Facility. Officials insist that no community will accept a nuclear site without a safety net nearby, a place where workers could shelter in the event of a catastrophic accident. Donald's old blueprint is exactly what they need. It is, on paper, a footnote to an energy bill. In reality, it is the first brick in something far larger, and Donald has no idea what he has just agreed to. Thurman gives Donald a piece of advice early on that ends up defining the entire book. He tells him that the best way to manage the public is to feed them truth and lies in equal measure, and let people sort out the difference for themselves. It sounds like cynical political wisdom from an old-school senator. By the end of the story, it reads as a confession, a description of exactly how an entire civilization was rebuilt on carefully rationed half-truths. Working on the project puts Donald back in contact with Anna Thurman, the senator's daughter, and Donald's girlfriend back in college. Donald is married now to a woman named Helen, and Helen is not thrilled that her husband is spending his days locked in a room with his ex. It is a small, human tension buried inside a much larger conspiracy, but it matters, because Anna's feelings for Donald never really went away, and by the end of this story, we learn just how far she is willing to go to keep him close. Something about the project unsettles Donald almost immediately. Thurman is receiving a mysterious medical treatment. Tiny machines injected directly into his bloodstream, nanobots designed to repair the body from the inside. Thurman insists they are harmless, engineered to interact only with the DNA they are built for. Donald is not convinced. Then Thurman hands him a second document, a strange manual called The Order, and tells him to memorize it. The book is a set of protocols, rules for maintaining a population living underground for generations, rules for controlling panic, controlling memory, controlling truth. Donald reads it and cannot shake the feeling that he has stumbled onto something monstrous. He starts seeing a therapist in secret. He starts taking medication just to get through the day. He tells no one, not even Helen, what is really happening inside that windowless office in Washington. Construction continues. Not one silo, but dozens of them, scattered underground across the country. Each one massive, each one self-contained, each one built under the same cover story. Years pass. The facility above ground in Georgia is even chosen to host the Democratic National Convention, a strange and grim bit of theater, considering what everyone involved secretly knows is coming. And then, the day arrives. Crowds gather for the big event Thurman has been building toward. A young girl sings the national anthem. Donald loses track of Helen in the crowd, tries to find her, and Anna stops him, pulls him away just as the first explosions begin to tear through the sky. Atlanta is under attack. Bombs are falling. The illusion of a peaceful ceremony collapses into chaos in seconds, and everyone within reach is rushed underground into the silos that were supposedly built to to protect a handful of nuclear workers. Donald is swept into Silo 1. Helen is swept into a different silo entirely. In the panic, in the smoke, in the noise, husband and wife are separated, and Donald has no way of knowing if he will ever see her again. Now the story jumps forward, and this is where Shift becomes something stranger than a political thriller. In the year 2110, 61 years later, a man named Troy wakes up. He is groggy, disoriented, and told that everyone he has ever known is dead. He is given pills to manage the trauma, reassured that his strength will return, and sent to begin his first shift as an operator inside Silo 1. Because Silo 1 does not work like the other silos, the people stationed here do not live out full lifetimes underground. They serve 6-month shifts, awake and working. Then they are put back into deep cryogenic freeze for decades at a time, waking again only when they are needed. Troy is one of these operators, and his job, we quickly learn, is horrifying. He is responsible for monitoring the health and stability of the other 49 silos scattered around the country. And during his very first shift, he is forced to give the order that collapses Silo 12, killing every single person inside because the silo has become too unstable to save. Life inside Silo 1 is built on a strange rhythm no one down there fully understands. The shift workers eat together, sleep in narrow bunks, follow rigid schedules designed by the very manual Donald once memorized in Washington, and each of them carries the same quiet, medicated fog. Nobody asks too many questions. Nobody remembers too much. Troy talks with a fellow worker named Hal, a haunted man who mumbles about forgetting, about how easy it becomes to let entire decades simply slip away between shifts. It is unsettling and strangely peaceful at the same time, this idea that trauma can be managed by chemistry and cold sleep rather than ever actually healed. Troy is shattered by what he has done. He begins skipping the medication that is supposed to keep him calm, keep him compliant, keep his memories dull and manageable. And as the drugs wear off, fragments of his old life start bleeding back into his mind. A wife, a different name, a life in Washington that feels impossibly far away. By the time his first shift ends, the truth is unavoidable. Troy is Donald Keene. The government has not just buried his body underground, it has buried his identity. More than a century after the bombs fell, in the year 2212, Donald is woken again, and this time both Thurman and Anna are waiting for him. Anna has also been kept in careful rotation through cryosleep, and she delivers devastating news. Victor, the psychologist who authored The Order and helped design the entire behavioral system that keeps the silos obedient, has taken his own life. His death leaves a vacuum, and there are new crises brewing that Thurman believes only Donald can help solve. Multiple silos are reporting instability. Silo 18 in particular is on the edge of collapse. As Donald works alongside Anna to untangle the failures, he also finally learns what became of Helen. It is one of the quietest, most devastating moments in the entire book. Helen lived out her life believing her husband was dead. She grieved him, and eventually she moved on, marrying Donald's own close friend and raising 2 children in a world Donald never got to share with her. By the time Donald wakes up centuries later to learn her fate, Helen has already lived an entire life and died an old woman, in a silo Donald himself may have had a hand in overseeing. The husband who wanted only to protect her spent decades frozen while she grew old without him, and there is no fixing that. There is no reunion waiting at the end of this thread, just the crushing weight of time and distance that Donald can never get back. Meanwhile, hundreds of levels below in Silo 18, we meet a young porter named Mission. Mission spends his days carrying goods and messages between levels, and he becomes entangled with an elderly woman known only as the Crow, one of the few residents who seems to remember details of the world before the silos, details she should not be able to recall at all. The Crow passes Mission a note, meant for a technician in the IT department, a man named Rodney. The note that comes back is simple and chilling. "Help me." Mission's world is small and repetitive, level after level of the same gray stairwell, the same rationed meals, the same lottery system deciding who gets permission to have children. He thinks often about his mother, who died giving birth to him, and about how little any of them are ever told about why the rules exist at all. It is this same silence, the same absence of history, that makes the Crow's fragmented memories feel so dangerous to the people running things far above. This thread pulls Mission into the beginnings of an uprising, a growing unrest among people who sense, in ways they cannot fully articulate, that the story they've been told about their world is incomplete. Back in Silo 1, Donald is tasked with identifying exactly who in Silo 18 is resistant to the memory-suppressing medication, and why. He traces the anomaly back to something devastating: the very therapeutic drugs he secretly took decades earlier during his time in Washington may be part of the reason certain bloodlines resist the silo's chemical control. His guilt deepens. He gives the order that leads to the Crow's elimination. One more name added to the list of lives he has ended from behind a desk he never wanted to sit at. The uprising in Silo 18 is put down, but not without cost. And the story of Mission threading through the wreckage of his own silo is a haunting mirror of everything happening far above him in Silo 1, where old men in a control room decide, almost clinically, who gets to survive. There is a third timeline running through this book, and it belongs to a boy named Jimmy Parker, living in Silo 17, the silo next door to the one Juliette eventually calls home in Wool. In the year 2312, Silo 17 falls apart. Someone opens the airlocks. Panic spreads through the levels like wildfire. Jimmy's father, the second in command of the IT department, hides his 16-year-old son inside a secret bunker beneath the server room just before everything collapses into violence outside. For years, Jimmy survives alone down there, listening to the fighting fade into silence above him. Eventually, he has to venture out for supplies. He finds the silo empty, its population gone, its levels flooding in the lower mechanical decks. He finds a stray cat he names Shadow, and together they survive in an abandoned world underground, a silo that has become a tomb. Jimmy renames himself Solo. If that name means nothing to you yet, it will mean everything by the time you finish Wool, because this lonely, broken young man is the same person Juliette Nichols discovers years later when she escapes into Silo 17 herself. Back in Silo 1, time keeps folding forward. By 2345, Donald is woken for what should be a routine shift, but something has gone wrong. The people around him keep addressing him as Mr. Thurman. His identity has been switched, deliberately or by accident, and Donald quickly realizes this mistake is an opportunity. Hidden behind another man's name, he begins making decisions no one expects him to make. He starts quietly reaching out through the silo's monitoring systems to Silo 18, making covert contact with a woman named Juliette and a man named Lucas, the very characters whose fight for the truth defines the ending of Wool. Donald confronts Anna about the full extent of her manipulation, about the years she spent orchestrating his life from behind the scenes to keep him close to her instead of Helen. He wakes his own sister, Charlotte, and hides her in the same place Anna once hid, a quiet act of rebellion against the system he has been forced to serve. Underneath all of it sits one brutal justification, spoken plainly by the men who built this world. They claim that nanotechnology, originally meant to heal, had already been weaponized by others, and that a catastrophic attack was inevitable no matter what they did. Rather than wait for someone else to trigger an uncontrolled apocalypse, Thurman and his allies decided to trigger a controlled one themselves, killing billions instantly in order to preserve a curated population of thousands who would repopulate the Earth 5 centuries later, once the poisoned world above had time to heal. It is presented as mercy. It reads as one of the coldest acts of mass murder in modern fiction, all justified by men who genuinely believed they were saving the species by deciding, quietly and without consent, who deserved to survive. By the final pages of Shift, Donald is no longer the naive congressman who once trusted his old family friend without question. He has ordered silos destroyed. He has hidden the people he loves. He has begun working in secret against the very system he helped build, reaching out toward Juliette and the people of Silo 18 in the hope that someone, somewhere, might finally break the pattern. The book ends exactly where Wool does, two timelines finally converging, setting the stage for the trilogy's final chapter, Dust, where the buried truth of the silos and the fate of everyone still trapped beneath the earth will finally come to a head. Shift is not really a story about bombs or bunkers or nanotechnology. It is a story about ordinary, flawed people convincing themselves that unthinkable choices are acceptable if the cause is large enough. It is about how easily good intentions curdle into control, and how the people running the world from a windowless room rarely have to look their victims in the eye. If Wool asked what it takes to survive underground, Shift asks something colder. It asks what kind of person builds the walls in the first place, and whether they can ever really live with what they've done. And that question is exactly why this book has stayed with readers for over a decade, and why it now stands at the center of the next chapter of the story on screen.